So everything starts out as intellectual capital or intellectual property or wisdom and ideas and knowledge. And wisdom and ideas ultimately are either nurtured and developed into the physical manifestation of those ideas, which would either be a book, a shelf, or a building, which eventually gets sold and turned into financial capital, which we'll talk about later. Or it can just be sold directly as intellectual property. So coming from the beginning where it's actually thought about, it gets sold as intellectual property and immediately turned into financial capital. But what we're gonna assume is that we're taking this idea and we're gonna develop it and nurture it and actually grow it into something that can then be sold and turned into financial capital. And so this is what that would look like. Okay, so once you have your intellectual capital or intellectual property, what you're gonna need to do is find somebody within your socioeconomic group or within your network, whatever it may be, that can help you get that done. Originally, when I wanted to put this idea together of getting a channel started that's dedicated for finance and stuff like that, I had no previous experience in production and recording things and stuff like that. So I found him. His background has been video production, media production in general, just working his way around a set and camera equipment and all these different kind of things. I have no idea how any of it, or at least back then when we originally started, I had no freaking idea how everything worked. I knew that you recorded stuff with a camera, but that's pretty much like the furthest extent of my knowledge that went with it. And it was really interesting because he came to me. Like, I didn't go to him and say, hey, listen, Deji, I need a favor. He came to me and he said, listen, look, this is the agreement, okay? And this is where social capital, this is how it all works out, okay? He said, look, I have a plan, okay? I'll dedicate 5 months in helping you build your channel and everything that you want to do. If you, at the end of these 5 months, will dedicate 5 months to me and help me with my strategies and putting the website together and the actual business aspect of it, which sounded like a great deal to me, right? And so we didn't exchange money. There was no finances or financial capital or anything like that that was exchanged. It was strictly social capital. He does me a favor, now I owe him one, and so I have to return the favor, and then it's going to go back and forth like this. And there are so many relationships that you can develop like this throughout your life and your career, that as long as you know the person is competent, like, you don't want to owe a favor to somebody who is incompetent and can't get shit done. Like, he wouldn't do this for me if I wasn't able to reciprocate. Does that make sense? And so you have to find somebody that can actually reciprocate the favor that you're going to do for them, and then just work this barter situation back and forth to build everything else that you want to build, which will ultimately translate into financial capital. Cultural capital can only be gathered by a community of people, and it pretty much describes all of the internal and external processes within a community. So for layman's terms, it would be anything like concerts or social gatherings and theatrical performances, religious gatherings, and pretty much anything in pop culture where somebody memorizes a song or whatever it may be that it brings a group of people together for the same idea would be considered cultural capital. And once you have your intellectual capital and you've met with the right people and developed your social capital and you've met with the right organizations to get your cultural capital, you will end up doing your first level of material capital collection, which is something like Home Depot, and you would come and you would get your raw materials, which might be the lumber and the drywall and the equipment and the nails and whatever it may be that you would use and piece together with the specialties of some people that already have the experience, and then we'll talk about that in a little bit. And you'll combine all of those things to create something much bigger, which is still going to stay in the material capital category, but it's going to be all of these things combined to create the bigger piece. Okay, so basically it'll kind of be the same thing that we try to do across the street. Is except if you could see if you can start with that logo. I don't exactly know how practical that would be, and end up with this behind me. So it'll come right here, and then it'll just stop right here. And the moment that you stop is when I'm just gonna go into the piece, and then we'll use this for the experiential capital section of it, and then we'll see that if we can get the same thing when we go to the construction site. We'll try to get another. Well, this wouldn't be B-roll. Is this B-roll? What would this be called?
This is a
behind the scenes footage. A-roll.
A-roll, I guess.
Whatever.
Experiential though. Right?
Whatever. This is all for experiential stuff, because we're experiencing what it's like to create a production for you, the fans that are watching this, wherever you're watching this. So I'm ready whenever you are. Yeah. I'm ready for my close-up. I messed it up. I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. Deji. Okay, so out of all of the construction sites in the local area, this is the one that's easiest to break into. So basically what I want to do is, once we get past the gate, there's a little location down where you kind of go into the, I guess, what's supposed to be the garage of the building, that they have all of the raw materials set up, and then we can kind of establish the shot over there and get everything done. And then you can get all your B-roll stuff and everything that you would need from here. And I think, yeah, that'll be it, and we can wrap it.
Cool.
And what ultimately started as the raw materials that you guys saw earlier in the first part of the material capital section will end up into this, which what you see is that is going to be a construction site. It's going to be built into something. So you'll have the raw material with the expertise of the people that actually know what to do with the raw material, that you ultimately combine it, turn it into a building, and eventually either turn this into a business or sell the building, whatever it may be. So this building as a collective whole is also considered material capital. And it started as what you saw at Home Depot, and it ended up turning into this, which is pretty cool. And so what ultimately started out as intellectual property and intellectual capital and went through the system that you've seen so far will end up being sold for financial capital, which at the very, very beginning of time, which was gold and silver coins, which then eventually turned into currency, actual paper currency, which then turned into digital currency, which then turned into massive real estate buildings, and all of these different things that was part of the barter and money currency sector, which eventually made up the financial capital markets. And so everything starts out as an idea, and it's either sold directly to the financial markets and it becomes financial capital, or it goes through the system that you saw and then it turns out being sold and turned into financial capital. And then there's still a cycle that's going to continue after this. So it doesn't end with money, which is very, very important. So it doesn't end with money. Money is just a part of the process. And last but definitely not least on our list is going to be spiritual capital. And I really wanted to dedicate a specific amount of energy to this because it seems that in our current culture and current society, a lot of people, grand majority of people, are choosing to put everything else as a priority before their spirit. And I'm here to challenge you and motivate you to try to think opposite, that if you can put your spirit before everything else, and I'm not asking you to be religious, I'm not enforcing my beliefs on you, but I'm saying simply that if you choose to connect to that deeper part of yourself, that higher part of yourself, and connect to that and use that as a foundation for everything else that you do, you'll find that your intellectual property, intellectual capital is going to be better, your social capital, and ultimately your financial capital, which is your bank account and your assets and net worth, is going to end up being much better. So I wanted to kind of take everything and come back full circle to this, that this is probably the most important piece of this entire equation that we went through today. And if you choose to put this first, I think that you'll notice very quickly how much of a difference it can actually make in your life, and hopefully it will make a difference for you. And so I hope you enjoyed this different capital series that we did for you guys, and you actually got value from it. And we'll see you in the next piece that we do. So thanks so much for watching. See you guys soon.